If you've been having trouble with this question, here are 5 points that may help you come to an answer for yourself. Before we get to them, just one little quibble with the wording of this question. This word need. If you need something, you might come to believe, or someone else may come to believe, that therefore you should or you must or you should be compelled to do it. Now the issue with that is that therapy is about choice and autonomy. So if you convince yourself or someone else that they need something, then they may feel compelled to do it, but then that defeats or contradicts this principle of expanding choice and encouraging autonomy. So ideally, it should be something that you want to do. So we could perhaps rephrase the question as, is it something that you believe is going to benefit you and help you, or is suitable for what you want to achieve, rather than just this blanket assumption that you need it or should do it. All right, so that out of the way, let's get into the 5 points. So first of all, the most obvious one. Is there something that you want to change first, and that is also possible to change? Because there are a lot of things in this world, for many of us, that we perhaps would like to be different. But there's a fraction of those that we can actually influence and affect directly. Now, if it is something that we can't affect, there may still be a place for the therapy, just in terms of how we think about it. A lot of people and a lot of suffering is derived from an attempt to exert an influence where we can't. And so if we can come to terms with that and accept our limited sphere of influence, then that may be in and of itself helpful and could constitute a kind of change. So there is that. But outside of that, or other than that, if there isn't something in your life that you want to change and that you believe is possible to change, then it may not be suitable for therapy. Number 2 is the following. Is it something that you believe, if we've established now that there is something you want to change, you've identified that. Is it something that you believe information alone can help you change? In other words, is the only thing missing some knowledge or information, some kind of realization or strategy that you didn't have before, that once you have it, you will have solved the problem, or you will be able to enact a change? If that's all you're looking for, then therapy may not be suitable. Because as I've spoken about in other videos, there's never been more access to information, much of it garbage, but a lot of it is great. Thousands of years of texts from the smartest minds to ever walk the earth, teaching you methods, strategies, how to live, how to achieve things. So if you believe you're just lacking in knowledge, then either you can probably just do some reading or listening to learn these things. Or alternatively, if you do want to purchase some kind of service from someone, you could hire a coach. Now, how is a coach different to a therapist? Well, I'm sure I've, again, touched on this to some degree before, but just to reiterate it briefly here, the difference with a coach is that a coach is simply there to impart knowledge and information, track your progress, and hold you accountable, assuming that what you claim to want is what you want, and there's no need to investigate why you haven't achieved it already. And so your compliance is expected, and as long as you comply, you should be able to achieve whatever you've set out to achieve with the help of this coach. All right. So therapy is different to that. And it's not just an information exchange. It's a process. And the getting to know, the building of the relationship itself is part of the intervention. It's part of how we achieve the change. So it's a more multi-layered process. And there's a lot of uncertainty about where it's going to go. It's not as straightforward as this coaching arrangement, which, again, is not to say that that's inferior anyway. It's suitable in many cases. And it's arguably something you can do more quickly and cheaply than therapy, because you're already clear on what you want to achieve. All right? So if information, guidance, accountability is all you want, then you might not need to waste a lot of the effort and time and money on a longer, slower process, which is what therapy is, compared to just leaning on a coach. All right. And if it's some kind of moral instruction you're looking for, that again is not something you're going to get from a therapist, probably. Ideally, really. Spoke about this in my video on neutrality, therapy and neutrality, that we attempt to be neutral. And so if you're looking for some kind of moral framework to guide your life, odds are you're not going to find it in the therapy. So you need to find it elsewhere, whether that's from a religious figure or some philosopher, etc. Number 3. So this sort of relates to the previous 2 to a degree, in that, as I mentioned at the beginning, therapy is about choice and autonomy. And so if you're looking for someone to give you advice or tell you what to do, guide you or lead you, tell you what's right from wrong, then again, you may be disappointed. Then therapy may not be suitable for you, because we attempt to be neutral in order to foster your own capacity for self-determination. So that's something you kind of have to want. You kind of have to want and desire to be more independent and capable, solving your own problems, not leaning on other people, like a therapist. I've said this before, in a way, our job is to get you to fire us, to become obsolete, because you have enough tools and awareness now that you no longer need to lean on us. You can do it yourself. Or you've learned how to lean on other people in a healthy way in your own life. Communicate what you want and what you don't want to them. So that's another thing. Are you interested in that? If you're not, and you're just, again, looking for someone to guide you, tell you what to do and what not to do, you may be disappointed. Number 4, patience is required. As I alluded to when I was talking about coaching can be quite effective, and it's often faster because we don't have to go into all this history and speculating about your motivations and all that kind of thing in coaching. Coach just takes for granted you want to do or want to achieve what you've claimed you want to achieve, and it's just going to provide you with structure and expect you to follow it. Therapy is a slower process, and so it requires patience, and also just financially. Ideally, you should be ready to commit to it for at least 6 months to a year. That sort of range. So if you're not willing to do that and show up consistently and pay the money, then again, it may not be right for you. Because it's slow, we have to rule out a lot of things, and there's just inherent uncertainty when we step back from this coaching or guidance role where we're assuming how you should live your life. We don't know that. We don't presume to know that. So there's a lot of discovery involved. And again, that brings with it uncertainty. And we don't know which paths we're necessarily going to go down. And we may go down certain paths that don't provide provide us what we were expecting, and then we have to go down another path. All right. So patience, and also just, can you afford it? Because some people, if you're already struggling and money's an issue for you, then this additional financial burden might just cause you more stress, make you feel worse, because now you're worried about having to be able to afford this extra thing. So ideally, you want to be in a stable position to pay for it, or have someone help you pay for it before you start doing it in this long-term way. Now, in terms of the duration, there are some exceptions to this. I've worked with some people that we've been able to solve their issue relatively quickly, much faster than that. And that typically happens, though, if it's a very narrowly defined problem. For example, if it's a sexual issue, it's just a very specific thing, and I know exactly how to solve it, and there's not a lot of nuance or really variation when it comes to needing to know or go into a ton of history. That can be done, and you can get great results in a relatively short period of time, but that is kind of rare. And so, generally, if this information stuff, which we assume often that you've already tried, that hasn't worked, then odds are it's going to take us a longer period of time to figure it out. Okay, last one, very quick one, is have you already ruled out, in terms of how you're feeling or how you've been doing, have you already ruled out medical issues? Is that already confirmed that is not contributing or a significant variable here in terms of how you're feeling? Like, are you sick? Are you ill? This kind of thing. All right. It's ideal that we rule that stuff out, not to say that someone that's sick can't do therapy, but in terms of its relationship to how you're feeling. For example, let's say you have a sleep issue, you can't sleep. And obviously that's going to affect your mood, but your sleep issue is related to some kind of physical issue, and we're not aware of that. Well, we kind of need to be aware of that. And it's not to say that the therapy can't help in terms of sleep management, etc. But if we haven't ruled that out first, then there's this big blind spot that we're not accounting for. All right, that's everything. I hope that has helped you become more equipped now to answer this question for yourself or someone you know. And you can go and find someone, if you do decide to do therapy, that is right for you. And if you want to learn more about the process, how it works, and just some theory and philosophies behind therapy and distinguishing it from these other disciplines, then there's a bunch of videos here you can look at in this playlist. All right, thanks.